internal security. We have covered the introductory part. Okay, border management we have covered yesterday. What is, why we try to manage our borders? One word answer. Why we try to manage our borders, rather close our borders? The intention is to keep it open for engagement, whether it is trade engagement, whether it is cultural engagement or any other what you call socio-cultural exchanges across the border. Okay. So, we spoke yesterday also about the various approaches to management, border management. What are the challenges along the border management? What are the challenges we face when we do the border management? Common cultural connect is there. Very important. The most important challenge that we face is variation in the situation, and the second most important point of border management is difficult. The difference in the geographical terrain or the geographical features. ऐसे चालू करो यार, किसके पास है देख, just take the you have seen the video, yesterday's video, class video? You have not seen. Yesterday what were you seeing then? Polity. Today you try to cover yesterday and day before 2 videos also, okay? So that you are in sync with us. That's the important. Yeah. So in the approaches to border management, what are the 4 points? कौन बताएगा? When we are using the term approaches to border management, basically we are trying to see how all, with what all things we are trying to control or manage our borders, right? In that, first we said that we have a designated border guarding force for every border, whether it is Pakistan, Bangladesh, China, Nepal, Bhutan, Myanmar, Afghanistan. We have a dedicated border guarding force. India, Pakistan, the name of the border guarding force is BSF. India, Bangladesh, the name of the border guarding force is सो रहा है हाँ. Nepal and Bhutan is the Shasastra Seema Bal. Okay. India, Myanmar is being manned by Assam Rifles, and India, Sri Lanka border by we do not have any land boundary with India and Sri Lanka. Okay. And yesterday I gave you some homework, states and all. Which is the state that has the longest international boundary? West Bengal is the state which has the longest international land boundary. Which is the state which has the longest international coastal boundary? Gujarat. Gujarat has the largest coastline. Yesterday somebody was saying AP, no? कौन था वो? AP देखा, गुजरात भी उसी ने बोला, AP भी उसी ने बोला, ठीक है? It is the state of Gujarat which has the longest coastline. The reason why it is longest is that the geographical terrain is such that it looks small, but it protrudes outside, it again goes inside, it again protrudes outside. That is the reason why when we measure the length, so that is where the Gujarat's coastline is the longest, right? Now, how many states do have international boundaries? Total states that have, not union territory, states that have international boundary. How many states? Start from Gujarat. Does Maharashtra have an international boundary? Land boundary? No. So we start from Gujarat, Rajasthan. You start from Gujarat, Rajasthan, Punjab. Then J&K is a union territory now, madam. Now Uttarakhand, Himachal Pradesh, Bihar, then बिहार के बाद हाँ सिक्किम, अभी काउंट करो, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. कोई रह गया? कोई रह गया? Does UP has an international border? +7 कर दिया. सिक्किम +7. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Are we missing anyone? Are we missing anyone? Does UP has an international boundary? With whom?
India, Nepal.
Is it Bihar or UP? Box, 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 box. Does UP share a boundary with Nepal? Question mark. Does UP share a boundary with Nepal? Okay, this is your homework for today. One more homework I had given, ICPs, integrated check post. We will come to that, wait. In the approaches to border management, these dimensions we have discussed just now. The second approach to border management was regulation. How do you regulate? You regulate the people who are living in the border areas. You also regulate the movement of goods across the border. For the purpose of regulating the people movement, the border guarding force commanders issue identity cards for the ease of identifying each and every individual who is staying in the border areas, right? For regulating the movement of goods across the borders, what we have in place is called ICP. It is called an integrated check post. Now I gave you homework yesterday. As I told you, integrated check post is a place where vehicles carrying goods from neighboring countries come and get inspected from various dimensions, starting from security dimension, the customs dimension, the dimensions related to whether that trade in that particular good is permissible or not, within the permissible limit or not, what is the sanitary status of that particular good, does it carry any infectious material, viral load or bacterial load. Then the foreign exchange happens there, the banking facilities happen there. So all the dimensions related to trade are consolidated under a one common place called integrated check post. Now yesterday I gave you the homework, which are the 7 or 8 integrated check posts that are operational and which are the check posts that have been earmarked for the government for getting operational in future. So how many check posts are operational as of now?
6 are operational and 1 is under construction.
Okay, what is the name of the check post along India Nepal border? कौन बताएगा? Two check posts, Jogbani and Raksol and Jogbani along India Nepal. किस किस ने होमवर्क नहीं किया हाथ ऊपर? क्यों नहीं किया? बताया था ना करने के लिए. See, everything cannot be taught in the classroom. It will eat on to time that can be used for something else. So my habit of teaching, my style of teaching is, this is what IIT does. They teach you 30%, they ask you to learn 70%. I will teach you 80%, I will ask you to learn 20% on your own. See, I can dictate India, Pakistan, Atari border, India, Manipur, what you call More border, okay, More ICP, I can dictate, but the reason why I ask you to go and check it, in the process you will see certain other things also. That is the aim of making you to go back home and see that, okay. So do follow that. It has got a hidden agenda, not only giving you that information related to that which is also essential. See, UPSC prelims is becoming difficult year after year. I am telling you, it is very difficult to pass prelims. Mains mein, if you have taken foundation in this platform, mains you will have a cakewalk. I'm telling you, believe you me, you will have a cakewalk in mains. But prelims is one area we are not able to comprehend how deep he is diving to get a question in a particular domain. So now our intention is to teach you as much as possible and then ask you to do certain homework as much as possible. Okay? Now coming back, which are the two ICPs along India Bangladesh border? One is Agartala, the second is Petropol. So ICP Petropol and ICP Agartala along India Bangladesh border, ICP Atari along India Pakistan border, right. So we have seen two along India Nepal, we have seen two along Bangladesh, we have seen one along Pakistan. So one is there along Myanmar called ICP More, MOREH. Okay. So at least today go back home, make a box, functional ICPs, India Pakistan Atari, India Nepal Birganj and Jogbani, right. India Bangladesh Petropol and Agartala, India Myanmar ICP More. Now with a small country like Nepal and with country like Bangladesh, we are having two what you call ICPs, right, and many more are proposed in future. More than 7 ICPs are being proposed with Bangladesh and hardly one more ICP is proposed with Pakistan. What is the message here the government is trying to give? That I am not interested in trade with Pakistan and I am interested in trade with Bangladesh. The trade with Bangladesh, 70% of India Bangladesh trade happens to these checkposts only, 70%. Just imagine, goods worth billions of dollars cross these checkposts along India Bangladesh border. Because of the geographical proximity, we do not take the sea route for trade between India and Bangladesh. We generally take the land route for the trade between India and Bangladesh. Right. Now which is the third point? Border area development. The third approach to border management is border area development. Till 1980s, mid 80s or late 80s, India was not comprehending the developmental gap as a reason for the increased unrest along the border areas, right. It was in the late 80s that a realization had sunk in that there are lot of border development gaps in our border areas. That is what the enemy is using to instigate our own people against our country, or at least to help them in carrying out sabotage activities in our countries. So with the intention to cover these developmental deficit gaps, the government started the border area development program in the year 1993-94 as part of the 7th 5-year plan. Okay. Initially it was started in the western sector along India and India and Pakistan, and in the 8th 5-year plan, this what you call the border area development program was extended to India Bangladesh border also, right. Yesterday one more homework I gave as regards border area development program. I told you to find out in how many states, in how many districts, in how many blocks the border area development program is in functioning. How many states? 17 as per the Ministry of Home Affairs, right. But okay, next how many districts? 1 and 11 is border blocks. District is different, border block is different. 111 border blocks. Somebody who has not done this homework, again today go back home, open the Ministry of Home Affairs site. In that Department of Border Management hai, uske andar 2 pages PDF is there. It is the same PDF in which the border distances between India and the respective countries has also been given. There are certain other important points, please do make a note of that also. Now as we told, there are 3 parameters when we see the funding pattern of a border area development program. The first that they take into consideration is the length of the border, second is the population of the border, and third is the area of the border block, So whenever the government is releasing any funds for the development of the border areas under the BADP scheme, this is how the fund allocation is happening. It is happening on 3 priority lines. based on the length of the border, based on the area of the population, area of the border block and the population in that particular border area, right. So, this is how the allocation of funds is happening. Then I gave you one more homework, the central sponsored scheme, the centrally sponsored scheme. In that we have something known as core scheme and we also have core of the core scheme. What is the difference between core scheme and the core of the core scheme?
Social protection and social inclusion.
Funding pattern mein what is the change?
Central
Core of the core scheme, what happens? It is fully funded by the central government. You need to understand, see, whenever it is centrally sponsored scheme, it means the center is also giving some money. If it is central sector scheme, SCCTOR, it means wholly the central government will give money for that. Sponsoring and the sector of the government is completely different. So, इस dimensions को भी समझना है. Any other homework I had given? No? चलो. Who all have not done the homework today? कोई बात? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Rahul, you had done? Good. Tomorrow this figure should come down to 0. And which is the fourth point that I told you that we will be discussing in approach to border management is constituting bilateral institutional mechanisms. Bilateral institutional mechanisms, very, very important, okay. Constituting bilateral institutional mechanisms. See, पहले सुनो फिर बाद में लिखना, ठीक. The point that the country has not declared war on Pakistan or China is a testimony to the fact that we are at peace. I hope you are understanding. If the government has not declared, if the president has not come on All India Radio and if he has not said that we are at war with China or Pakistan, it means there is a peace situation along the border. The country is not at war, the country is in peace, right. So, during peace time also there are various ways that the hostilities can develop along the border. It may not be a warlike situation, but the situation could be tense. Maybe in a very small area, certain troops might be fighting with each other. Okay, this rock was mine, this rock was, you were supposed to be 3 feet behind the rock, you have come 1 feet ahead of the rock. So, this rock happened to be our alignment of our border, please go back. These things do happen along the border area because as I told you, border is not a geographical feature. It is traversing through various areas, maybe at places it is traversing through a water body, at places it is traversing through plains. So, how do you justify where the border is actually going on ground? So, this leads to small skirmishes along the border. Though I am using a word very loosely, skirmishes, it has got a definite meaning. So, it may result into certain skirmishes amongst the troops who are guarding the border area for us. So, to avoid any kind of these kind of altercations before the situation goes out of control and turns out to be a full-fledged war, there are various methods that are put in place that are called as bilateral institutional. The moment I use the word institutional anywhere, it means there is a body, there is a department or there is some what you call hierarchical structure in that particular body which is being termed as institution. So, under this constituting bilateral institutional mechanisms, what happens is many a times you would have seen this word in news, it will come, flag meetings. I will show you some pictures also in tomorrow's class. Flag meetings. What happens is, we know that the border guarding force of India manning the border with Pakistan is BSF, right. The same way Pakistan's border guarding force manning the border with India is called Ranger. they are called rangers, they are not regular army, they are called rangers. Okay. So many a times it so happens that these two people who are responsible for their various sectors, they meet in person, there is a personal interaction that happens. So we call this personal interaction where people come, they sit peacefully and discuss various issues that they have faced in the last 6 months while guarding that border area. So these meetings are called flag meetings. We call them the flag meetings of the border guarding force commanders. The flag meeting of the border guarding force commanders. See, the flag meeting will be done by the local border commander, right? This is a very ground level meeting of institutional mechanism. But at the highest level, the DG of BSF and maybe the DG of Rangers will also meet. So this is the highest level institutional meeting. This is probably the lowest level institutional meeting where the ground commanders are meeting with each other. So this is basically to what you call cool off the tensions between each other, where both the people will sit across, एक लाइन में बैठेगा इंडिया पूरा, opposite में बैठेगा पाकिस्तान वाले सारे without weapons. Nobody will come to the flag meeting with weapons, they are not supposed to come. So they discuss, last time you tried these stunts, this is wrong, you should not do. We saw that your troops unnecessarily fired on my civilian vehicles, more or less killed my civilian. All these issues will be discussed in that flag meeting. Okay? Now, see, the borders are not the way generally it is shown in the movies. मूवी में दिखाता है ना कि बॉर्डर से ऐसे सर ऊपर किया तो गोली मार देगा, ऐसा नहीं होता है. इन रियलिटी इट इज नॉट लाइक दैट. It may be like that when there are hostilities along the border. Generally otherwise, that is the reason why we say the border is peaceful. But it does not mean that I will come out of my post and in my banyan and chaddi I will do dance and all along the post. That does not happen. You need to maintain that decency along the post, that you do not unnecessarily peep out your head out of the post and see what is happening. So this is acceptable behavior, right? Anything which goes beyond acceptable behavior, that is where the friction comes. Okay? Now, this was one institutional mechanism. One more institutional mechanism is the meetings of, very very important, of home secretaries.
So these flag meetings, it will happen with all the 7 border countries.
Yes. क्या होता है, in a year there are generally 2 flag meetings. One flag meeting, if it is held in India, the other flag meeting will be held in the other neighboring country, whether it is Pakistan or any country for that matter. Okay? See, when I am using this word institutional, one more thing you need to understand, I will never invite a political leader. In that meeting or in that association, political representative will not come. The moment I use the word institutional, it is apolitical. There is no political representation in any institutional body. Reserve Bank is a financial institution. There is no political person in the Reserve Bank. NABARD is a financial institution. There is no political representative in the NABARD. So institutions are apolitical entities which are independent of the political structures of our country. So that is the reason why I am not calling home minister, but I am calling home secretary, a IAS officer or a IAS officer only, home secretary. Okay? Try to understand. जितने भी पुलिस वाले हैं पूरे इंडिया में, उन सबका बाप है वो. Understand, that is so powerful position. If you are home secretary means you are the boss, THE, the boss. Okay? That is the reason why you see principal secretary home in a state, though it is related to security, but it is headed by an IAS officer. IPS officer does not become a principal home secretary, he does not become. Okay? That is the reason why people aspire to become IAS officers more than the IPS officers. You will generally see, even IPS officers serving will sit to write the examination because they want to become this. Okay? The penultimate concentration of power happens at this level. Okay? Bank, there is a Department of Financial Services in the Ministry of Finance. Yes or no? So there is a secretary for that department. He controls all the banks of the country. आपको और मेरे को लाइन में जाके पैसा जमा करना पड़ता है. If he wants any service of the bank, he just drops a message through his peon that bank का incharge will come to his office. बोलिए सर क्या सेवा करें आप? You getting my point? That is the amount of power that you will. So meetings of the home secretaries, maybe India, Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, it could be anything. One more meeting. Meeting of the foreign secretaries, very, very important. Recently Jaishankar made a statement on China, no? Recently Jaishankar sir had made a statement on China. He said that the Chinese are aggressive in their border approach. It means they are trying to be aggressive when they are talking. You cannot be aggressive if you have an intention to resolve a dispute. Can you be aggressive and resolve a dispute? Can it ever happen? So you need to mellow down your tone and language and approach if you really seeking for a solution. And one more entity they will meet, the surveyor generals will meet. Surveyor generals. Who is a surveyor? हाँ भाई राजकुमार कहाँ गया? आज आया नहीं. Civil engineer आया नहीं. कल एक सवाल पूछा आज आया नहीं. हाँ? Who is a surveyor? See, along the border, say this is the border. This is our friend and this is we, right? You would have heard, no? Picketing is done along the border, milestone. Pickets होते हैं इसमें, yes or no? This is the work of surveyors. Based on the geographical location, they are supposed to do the picketing. Now, what happens? For example, along this border area, there is a river flowing, for example. So, there is a high probability the river will change its course over a period of time. So, there is a probability of an existing land getting submerged and probably the formation of a new land. It can happen. When we have a boundary in a high altitude area, because of avalanches also some what you call repairs would be required. So, surveyor generals at the highest level, they meet with each other to carry out picketing, repairs, realignments, readjustments as the need comes. So, they will discuss that at that particular level where the surveyor generals of both the countries will meet with each other regularly. See, if you see, all this is intended at what? What is the intention? To cool off the tensions, and ensure that they do not become trigger happy unnecessarily. That is the intention. That is why it comes under the heading approaches to border management. Now it is clear? Now it is clear? Chalo. Next. In a fresh page, put a heading Kargil Review Committee, put a heading Kargil Review Committee report recommendations on Kargil Review Committee recommendations on effective border management. Kargil Review Committee's recommendation on effective border management. Got it? These points of the committee I will discuss just before I complete the last chapter of your discussion, of your syllabus. Why? Because the way you will understand his recommendations then, you will not understand it now. Because this guy gave far reaching recommendations, though he gave the recommendation after Kargil war 99 ke baad he gave these recommendations, it is felt that these recommendations would stand valid even after 2100 also. That is the kind of recommendation this guy has given. So when we cover each and every chapter, terrorism ho gaya, your intelligence agencies ho gaya, all other chapters, you will get a clearer idea of what this guy has told then. So at that point of time, after covering those chapters, we will come back to this. So leave 2 pages for this, leave 2 pages, no 2 page means front and back, enough, fair enough. Now put a side heading, India-China border dispute, India-China border dispute. See, in internal security domain, there are 3-4 committees who have done a splendid job in giving certain recommendations. Okay, one is Kargil Review Committee. There are certain other other committees also, Shekatkar Committee report and all. We will talk about them at length when the time comes. Okay, not many. There are few, but they are very good. You know, Jeevan Reddy Committee is there, Santosh Hegde Committee is there. All those things also we will cover. Now coming back to India-China border. In border management, first sub chapter, no, we wrote in the first day, India-China border disputes. See, because this is a class on internal security, we will have to limit our discussions on border disputes only. But there are certain elements of IR, till such time they have not been told, you will not understand the reason for the dispute. Okay? So to help you to understand the dispute better, I will cover that part of the IR history which is important for you to understand. Okay? We all know we share a long boundary with China now. What is the length of the boundary? 3,488 kilometers, very long. 3,488 is not a small boundary, right? India-China border. In the school days, you all have learnt that what is the name of the boundary between India and China? AC चाहिए नहीं चाहिए? नहीं चाहिए. भैया AC बंद कर दो. मैडम को AC नहीं चाहिए. India-China boundary is called. It is not McMahon. वहाँ चाइना में मोहन नहीं था कोई भी. Mahon. It is McMahon line. MAHON, not Mohan. मोहन को मत भेज देना चाइना, ठीक है. McMahon line, ठीक है. Now this is what we all know till now. It is so far so good. Now one dimension you need to understand. See, whenever you have a neighboring country, the opinion of that neighboring country on you determines his relationship with you. I am making a statement, try to understand. Whenever you have a neighbor, whether Nepal, Bhutan, Pakistan, Bangladesh or China, what that country thinks about you determines the relationship of that country with you. Understand? What that country thinks about you. Why I am saying is, what that country thinks about you is very important element in finding a peaceful solution to a border dispute. Say for example, Pakistan is there. The belief system of Pakistan is that I have an existential threat from India. The belief system of Pakistan, when I say Pakistan, I am not talking about the common masses. The belief system in the government hierarchy echelons, higher echelons, that we have an existential threat from India. What is an existential threat? That India wants to eliminate Pakistan. So the belief system that they have created, curated, preserved, nurtured over a period of time, that I have an existential threat from India. The moment you feel a threat from your neighbor, you try to be defensive. Yes or no? In the act of defense, you try to also commit certain offenses. So that is the reason why you see that we have this cross border problems and all with Pakistan, because he presumes the threat here is a result of a wrong perception and not reality. Is India really bothered about eliminating Pakistan from the world map? Do you think so? Has it been ever taught to you in schools or colleges, or any leader of the masses ever told कि Pakistan का नक्शा हम साला उसमें से नहीं उठाएं? Only in 1998 Vajpayee told this on the floor of the house in the parliament. He made a statement, if Pakistan is planning to attack India nuclearly, I can write off couple of districts or states from my map, but I will ensure that tomorrow morning there is no Pakistan on the world map. This warning this gentleman gave on the floor of your parliament to the world when some wrong things were happening in this time frame in Pakistan under General Musharraf. Okay? That is when we gave this statement. Now, because this is the belief system of Pakistan that they have an existential threat from India, so their approach towards India is different. But when we come to China and India, the thinking about India is completely different. What this guy says, and I agree to certain extent with that country, that India, what China says, India is a British creation to it says what the world looks at India the way it looks at today, the political assimilation, the geographical expression of India, what you claim today was never like this. Is true? Is true? We were never, the imagination of India started from Afghanistan and ended at the Indian, what you call Bay of Bengal. So it was such a big expanse. But what he thinks is that the Britishers have created India with the sole purpose of containing China's growth, containment of the Chinese hegemony in the Asian continent. This is the sole purpose why, because of which the India as a country was born. It says that, it does not stop here, it says that this is a borrowed concept. It says that democracy in India is a borrowed concept, while historically it was always kingship. True? Again true. It was historically always kingship, and democracy was as a core philosophy or political ideology is a borrowed concept in India. Second, he says you talk in a borrowed language. You have embraced a foreign language under them and you have nurtured it in the last 70 years. Again true. That is the reason why when I am talking to you, everybody is understanding this language. Otherwise, somebody from Karnataka, somebody from Kerala may not understand. Yes or no? He says, he does not stop here. He says, not only that, you have also embraced the Western culture. You have also embraced the Western trade practices. And one more very important claim that he puts on India, or blame that he puts on India, is that the political expression of India, is a farce, and they have proved it many a times. Is a farce. It means basically with a definite intention this political expression has been given to India. See, it says that India is a country which always traded in spices, exchanged certain other things for this, nothing more than that. You have sent troops across the globe to fight battles, this is what you are doing, and you may not be aware, India has also historically sent troops to China also to fight internal rebellion in China. The name of the rebellion is Boxer Rebellion. Box banao, Boxer Rebellion, and Google karo. Boxer Rebellion, where Indian troops went to fight the battle there. So this was India, and what India is being projected to the world is completely different. You were being ruled by kings and queens, by ruled by landlords and all, chieftains were there. But now today you are carrying with lot of pride democracy onto your shoulder, which is a borrowed concept. It is not the true expression of India as a country, right? The administrative unit, as India as an administrative unit, how you are projecting itself today is false and not true. Okay? So this is the thought process of China and India. It means this guy is not ready to agree India as a country in the first place. He is telling you are a British creation, you are not a country, you are a British creation with a definite intention, and the definite intention is the containment of China or the growth of China as a superpower in the Asian continent that time, right? Now, what happened is, whenever we tried to find a solution to our border dispute with China, all these points came in front. For example, one of the earliest efforts to find a solution to the border dispute was done in 1914 under something very famously known as Shimla Agreement. This is not the same Shimla Agreement of 1972 that we have signed with Bangladesh. That is a different Shimla Agreement. Okay? This is a pre-independent historic Shimla Agreement. Now, you will be surprised to know, we hardly shared any boundary with China historically. We always shared boundary with getting my point. We always shared boundary with Tibet. It was only when Tibet was annexed by China, this idiot became our neighbor. Otherwise, we always had a boundary with Tibet, not with this idiot. But because this territory, geographical territory called Tibet, was annexed by the Chinese in the modern times, that is how it became a border country to a neighboring country to India. Now the problem, just see. But this annexation of Tibet happened in the late 1940s. Annexation 1950s, sorry, not 40s, 1950s, right? But this meeting happened in the year 1914. What happened? In this, three parties met. British India, because we were ruled by them, Tibet came, and this guy also came. Why this guy came? Anybody? When I said I have only border with them, why this guy came? I told Myanmar was also under British India. The boundary between Myanmar, that is British India, Myanmar, whatever you call it, and China. For that purpose this guy was called. Getting it? Are got it or not? So in this meeting, three people came. 1, 2 and 3. Entire meeting, all three people physically present, discussions happened, everything happened. When it came to signing the McMahon line, this guy said, I am not going to sign. Then we asked, why are you not signing? Then you know what beautiful reply he gave? You are a colonial power, and you cannot enter into international land agreements. Where he read, God only knows, but he said this. You are a colonial power, you are an imperial power who are holding this territory, maybe today, may not be tomorrow. So you do not have the authority to sign this particular document. One expression. Now, he said, for the first time historically in the modern China, in the last 600-700 years of history of modern China, for the first time China made a statement, Tibet is not an independent entity. This was told for the first time. The Tibetan Lama had his first heart attack. Okay? The Tibetan Lama had his first heart attack when they told for the first time that this is what is going to happen, and he denied to sign the Shimla Agreement of 1914. No, we are not talking about League of Nations, we are not talking about your United Nations or any international entity. It says that if this is a kind of an agreement where two countries are signing with each other, because you are a colonial power, you cannot sign this international agreement. You cannot sign this, because see, signing an agreement or a treaty after a war is different, through discussions is different. If you sign a treaty after a war, if you win, you sign as a winner, if you lose, you sign as a loser. But this is just a discussion based agreement. That is the reason why I am saying you do not have the authority to sign. This is his perception. We cannot justify his perception because the perception is wrong. The perception is obviously wrong. Okay? Now, with these two statements China making, this guy left the meeting hall and these two signed the Shimla Agreement and gave birth to something known as the McMahon line. McMahon line, and the beautiest part of this McMahon line is this same McMahon line which China is not agreeing with India today, it agrees to the same McMahon line that was signed with you getting my point? Because the boundary is same, the same McMahon line he accepts as an international boundary between China and Myanmar, but he is not accepting the same McMahon line as the boundary between China and India. Okay? This is one issue. One more dimension, this is related to one part of the territory. If you see our map, this is the area which is called Aksai Chin near Ladakh. Okay, called Aksai Chin in Ladakh. Okay? A small story, 10-15 minutes लगेगा, but क्या है मैं समझा दूंगा आपको. ठीक है? Now, this was uninhabited then, it is uninhabited now. Not even a blade of grass grows in Aksai Chin. Not even a blade of grass. Blade of grass means one string of grass also grows in Aksai Chin. Nothing grows in Aksai Chin then and now also. But now the question is, if it is so uninhabited geographical area, why we are fighting for it? We need to understand that dimension. Okay? So, small historical perspective. See, we all have been taught in our schools and colleges, so called YouTube industry, university, that Aksai Chin हमारा है, लेकिन इतिहास गवाह है कि Aksai Chin हमारा नहीं है. The thing what has happened is, see, you need to understand history from a historian's perspective, but not from a politician's perspective. Okay? So, we are trying to understand from a historian's perspective. Politically, we still claim Aksai Chin is mine. There is no second opinion about it. But historians have a different point of view, right? See, the problem with history is how far back you will go to stake your claims on a geographical piece of land. You getting my statement? How far back in time you will go to stake claims. If you go back in times, the entire Europe was part of Ottoman Empire. अगर और उसके पीछे चले जाओगे कुछ और एम्पायर था. So now, can an Ottoman Empire come today and say, sir, this entire Eastern Europe was part of my territory, please give it back to me? That is what is Turkey trying to tell today. Okay? That is why Turkey is trying to tell today. That is what is Turkey is trying to tell. So, history is always where you will put a full stop in reverse. That is the biggest challenge. If Mughals had ruled your country for 5 years, does it make India an Islamic country? No, it did not make an India an Islamic country. The Mughals, the so called Middle East, never what you call invaded Indonesia but Indonesia converted from a Hindu country to an Islamic country today. That conversion happened naturally without any coercion or force. On India for 500 years coercion and force was put, but still India did not buzz. So that is how the history always says that how you look at your history determines your stand on a historical perspective. Coming back to Aksai Chin, what had happened is, if you see this area J&K, Punjab and all, if you can see J&K here and Punjab and all, and if you see closely, when I am saying Punjab, I am using both West and East Punjab. That time there is no Pakistan, India. Okay? So Western Punjab, a huge Punjab which is part of your present day Pakistan also, and certain areas of Afghanistan. These were all territories of Maharaja Ranjit Singh. I suggest make it in box, write his name, Google about him, 2 pages notes about him. Sure shot, something will come from there in your examination. Maharaja Ranjit Singh, the only ruler in the history of modern times, modern world history, who not only conquered Afghanistan but continued to hold it very strongly. The only what you call the leader who was successful in winning Afghanistan with one eye. Okay? Maharaja Ranjit Singh had only one eye. He lost one of his eyes in battle. So see the kind of a leader he is. He had such a big geographical expanse under an empire called the Sikh Empire, right? Now I told you we had a border with Tibet, right? So one of the Tibetan local rulers had some problem with the Central Asian countries, who what were not important to you. So when he had a problem with him, he wanted this empire to come to his rescue. Because this was a huge empire, Ranjit Singh did not run this empire alone on his own shoulders. He had given lot of what you call freedom to the local rulers to rule their kingdoms. So the J&K ruler supported him to fight him. When he supported him to fight him, in return, when he was successful in taking care of the Central Asian enemy, he asked this ruler who supported him, you choose any place here and make a good resort for yourself. So finally this guy landed in Aksai Chin and made a big fort there for his summer recess or winter recess, whatever it is. The way you have presidential palace in Hyderabad also, right? When it is too bad winters in Delhi, the president comes to Hyderabad to spend his winters in Hyderabad. So this time something like that, for his winter sojourn or the summer sojourn, this Aksai Chin fort was made. Now you know that this was also the time when India was under the occupation of British India, the British Empire, right? So this survey work, the picketing work, the creation of map work and all was being done by the Britishers. So when the British surveyors landed here, they saw Indians here. They asked, who are you? They said, we are from J&K, this is our king's fort. They misread this king's fort, our king's fort, as the territory belonging to British India. So they displayed this Aksai Chin and the adjoining territories as Indian territories in the maps. And when this map finally came onto the table of the Surveyor General of India, who was a British officer, he was astonished. How can this be part of India? This is part of that. But what they did was, they did not try to rectify this mistake, just kept it under the table. Bola rehne do isko aise. Now what happened? Till 1893, try to understand the geopolitics here. Till 1893, China did not have any objections on British India claiming Aksai Chin as part of integral territory of India. They did not have any objection, they kept quiet, they didn't say anything. See, the beauty with China is, they will keep quiet, which is the most difficult thing to do. कभी झगड़ा होता है, the most difficult thing to do is to keep quiet. Out of exuberance, he or she will start off and it will not end. But this guy has learned the art of keeping silent. But he kept silent. Till 1893 he kept silent. In 1893 somebody coaxed him, somebody pricked, अरे बोल तेरा है. Who was that somebody? 1893 US is nowhere in the world picture. US was a non-existent entity in 1893 completely. See, US followed one policy till 1941 when it was bombed by Japan. It had a policy of non-interference in the global affairs. तुम काट के मरो, लड़ के मरो, डूब के मरो, कैसा भी मरो, मुझे कोई लेना देना. This was the policy of US, which gave US fortunes. And naturally, if you see US, एक side Pacific, एक side Atlantic, कौन आएगा मरने? You getting my point? So this geographical isolation and non-interference in the world politics gave US time to grow, develop. There is no expenditure, there is no security ka kharcha, entire money into making money, more and more money, resources plenty, abundance of resources. What else you need? No border dispute. What else you need? Chalo develop. So 170 clear years of developmental efforts US had. That is the core strength of US. Why US is successful today? That is the reason. Okay? And we kept on fighting battles after battles after battles after battles after battles. Okay? Yeah. Now, it was your best friend, then the czars. Okay? I am writing Russia so that you understand. Okay? Russia told China, Bhaiya, it is high time you start staking claims on your what you call Aksai Chin, otherwise तुम्हारे हाथ से जाएगा. Now the question is, why Russia did this? In the history of modern world, there is something known as great game. Box banao or likho. You know the British India was in India. The British was in India, occupying India as a colonial empire or an imperial empire. Okay? Now, Russia was afraid that because this guy went till here, and in 1858 the Punjab province was also lost to the Britishers. The fall of Punjab was the last major battle won by the Britishers. It means that they will get this also. Yes or no? If they will get this, Russia feared that now British India from Afghanistan may come to Russia. Britishers feared that Russia may invade Britain from Afghanistan. So that is why it is always said that, I told you, Afghanistan is graveyard of civilizations. The moment Britishers entered here, their downfall started. That is how the downfall of Britishers started in 1857 afterwards only, right? The moment they tried to enter Afghanistan, because they involved the geopolitics into it, that is when the great game started. The great game was nothing but an effort of the Britishers to stop the southward expansion of Russia through Afghanistan into the Indian territory, which was considered to be the jewel in the crown of British Empire. So they did not want Russia to come anywhere closer to British India and try to annex India from Britain and make it their own colony. So this fear, and these two, the Britishers and the Russians, lived with this fear for 50 years. 50 साल ये fear के साथ जिए. 50 years that he will come down, that he will come up. ठीक है? Now, in this backdrop, I told you this guy coaxed him to stake claims in 1893. As I told you before this, because of this map making, this was shown as an Indian territory. This was done by a civil servant, surveyor called William Johnson, and the line that depicted Aksai Chin as part of Indian territory came to be known as Johnson line. Very, very important. Johnson line, which displayed or showcased Aksai Chin as an integral part of India. As an integral part of India. Getting it? See, at present we are discussing the western sector dispute with China. There are three sectors of dispute with China: western sector, central sector, eastern sector. In the western sector, we have this Aksai Chin area. In the western sector, you have this J&K ka region which is disputed. There are certain regions in Uttarakhand and Himachal Pradesh also which are disputed, that we will be discussing tomorrow. Very briefly I will be touching upon them. And in the central sector, the areas of Sikkim was disputed erstwhile. Now this dispute is more or less settled. So there are two passes here. What is a pass? PASS in a geographical feature. Pass is it is an area through which you can traverse along the mountains. It is called a pass. Make a box, right? Important passes along India's border. Important passes along India's border. Now you need to know India, Pakistan, which pass? India, what you call Nepal, which pass? India, Bhutan, which pass? India, China, which pass? Because those days there was no aircraft or something like that. You have to traverse through the land only. If there is no pass, you cannot climb the mountain and go other side. It is impossible. So you have to have a pass to go. So all the invasions in India happened through some pass only. So now the box is, which was that pass which people crossed through and came to India and invaded India. Very, very important. There are two passes along the Sikkim, Nathula and Jelepla. La is a pass, L-A. Nathula, Jelepla, J-E-L-E-P, Nathula and Jelepla, Sikkim. You make a list of it, kahin pe likho, keep revising it, question aayega, theek hai. Now coming back to our question. And in the eastern sector, you have the entire Nepal or Arunachal Pradesh, not Andhra Pradesh, Arunachal Pradesh, theek hai, which is disputed between India and China. So the Aksai Chin that we are disputing presently is part of your western sector what you call conflict. In that, Aksai Chin is that distributed area. Now I was telling you about the Johnson line. This depicted this as integral part of India. Now when China started staking claims on Aksai Chin, Britishers ko laga yaar kis liye faltu mein, because this was the time when Britishers were trying to develop cordial trade relationships with China in the east, Beijing area and all. So they were trying to enter China for trade purposes. So they felt, as such this is uninhabited area. I told you, no, not even a blade of grass grows. The Britishers felt, theek hai yaar, banjar zameen hai, it's a barren land, they are claiming that it is ours, let us give them. And we will keep the trade engagement open so that the trade does not get distorted. So with that intention, they proposed through another line which is called Henry MacDonald line. Henry MacDonald line, they proposed that we would like to give Aksai Chin to China. I told you the importance of being silent. He kept silent. And it is said, unofficially China replied, how can you gift me something which is already mine? Beautiful lines, no? How can you gift something to me which is already mine? Tu mere ko kya dega, wo to mera hi hai. So he kept quiet, and unofficial sources, this was a message given. So now the Britishers felt, sala kare to kya kare. Then finally they decided to revert to the Johnson line. So that is how when India became independent, we inherited the British territories, yes or no? when we inherited the British territories, we inherited Aksai Chin also, that was depicted in the British Indian maps as Indian territories. So we continue to stake our claims that Aksai Chin is an integral part of India. See, Nehru tried to give this away. He tried very subtly to avoid the war of 1962. He knew कि ये बहुत बड़ा तमाशा होगा, and he wanted to get rid of this tamasha by giving away this territory. So he told in the full floor of the house, but those time parliamentarians are different make metal, right? आज की डेट में किसी की हिम्मत नहीं है मोदी के खिलाफ एक वर्ड भी बोल दे. So this gentleman Nehru told on the floor of the parliament, not even a blade of grass grows there, let us give it to China. You know, one of the parliamentarians got up and said, not even a blade of grass grows on your head, I think we should also give you to China. इतनी हिम्मत कोई कर सकता है आज की डेट में, बट उस जमाने के लोग कुछ और थे, ठीक है. दैट करेज ऑफ कन्विक्शन वाज सो स्ट्रांग that they more or less ridiculed Nehru on the floor of the parliament, and that is why the decision to give away Aksai Chin was stalled, which finally led to in some way the war of 1962 with China, ठीक है. So after 1962 war, China took the physical occupation of Aksai Chin. They occupied Aksai Chin from 62 till today. Aksai Chin is under the physical control of China, though India continues to claim it as an integral part of Indian territory as per the British map records of erstwhile times. Okay? So this is the major what you call dispute, one of the major disputes between India and China. Now we have seen the Aksai Chin problem. There are small, I will show you on map tomorrow certain things that will be easier for me to explain. We will now go to the central sector. Go to the central sector, right? Central sector. And as I told you, what is there in the central sector? Sikkim is in the central sector. Okay? Now, एक second. Yes, madam. Anything? Hi, they are there. Tomorrow I will show you the maps and we will discuss because it will take more time. इसलिए I am not touching upon that today. Okay? Because it has to be helped understood through maps and all. Though understanding of map is not important, understanding of dispute is important. Okay? I will show you with the help of maps and now. Because we have hardly 30 to 33 minutes on. So that is the reason why I am not covering it. Now, in the central sector, Sikkim, whatever has been told till now since morning, anybody has any doubts? See, what happens is you have to understand certain dimensions from emotional front also. See, it is not India was the country that proposed that Myanmar should be given independence before India became independent. We proposed that because we knew historically they were not part of us. We knew historically because we knew lot of problems will come along with Myanmar to India. So we wanted to get rid of those problems and we only requested the Britishers, पहले उनको आज़ादी दे दो यार, हमको नहीं चाहिए. So that is how Myanmar became an independent territory, but this was not the case with the Northeast India. This was not the case with Northeast India because Northeast India over a period of time Britishers were successful in converting the entire landmass into Christian colony. So we were disturbed with that particular fact and we always envisaged that it will remain to be a crown colony kind of a thing in the neighborhood. So we did not want that to happen. So for that intention, see, now the question comes here, why Assam was annexed by Britishers in the first place? See, Britishers only point was what? They are capitalists. They want to make money. If the money comes by killing you, they will kill you. If the money comes by after killing you, selling your body, they will do it. They are capitalists. They are only wanting trade. They are not bothered about your emotions, historical past, nothing, history, culture, nothing looks for him. For them, it is only a matter of money because they are capitalists. Now, the Britishers wanted badly to trade with China. Silk, porcelain, tea and other things, and China was a territory that was ruled by Qing dynasty, Qing, Qing dynasty for 400-500 years till 1922. This Qing dynasty was a closed economy. They did not want to trade with anybody, but these idiots wanted to badly trade. So now they decided how to coax China to start trading with me. So they found an alternative in Tibet. What they did, because they knew, though Tibet was an independent administrative and political entity, see, Tibet you need to understand from the perspective that whatever Buddhism is in practice today, that was the time in the early 20th century that Tibetan lamas were revered as the Buddhist ultimate gurus, right. So that reverence for Tibetan lamas was there in China also, was there in the northeast also, and the Tibetan lamas were considered spiritual gurus by many, but not political gurus by any, but spiritual gurus by many, right. So that is the reason why the Qing dynasty also never touched the Tibet. It's a dynasty, means it can easily annex Tibet and take over, right, but they did not do. So though Qing dynasty ruled from 1644 to 1920 China, they never even thought of annexing Tibet because they revered them like that, right. Now, but the Britishers wanted to trade with China. They understood for trading with China, the only route available to me is to go through Tibet. So what they did, they poisoned the Tibetan youth with opium, because opium was available in India, because we were cultivating opium, and that's what is the, see, when China is telling something about India, I think you are this, it is out of their experience. You grew opium under the fear of Britishers and you sent that opium to Tibet, you corrupted the youth of Tibet and waged wars through those opium youth against my Tibetan and Chinese. Opium war 1, 2 and 3. Okay. So that is how they opened the trade route with Tibet and then with China, and this trade route opened through Assam Arunachal axis, and Assam, as I told you, Ahom kingdom, they were not allowing the Britishers to trade, and these people wanted to badly trade. If they come to west, Bhutan is their hilly terrain, you cannot trade from there, it is not conducive for trade. So the only way is through Assam, Arunachal, Tibet and up. So they badly wanted Assam. So that is what resulted in annexing of Assam, basically to venture into Arunachal and up to Tibet and China. That is the purpose by which Assam was annexed by them, right. Now, as I told you, this was the trade dimension of that. Sikkim was also an independent territory. Sikkim was an independent territory ruled by a dynasty called Chogyal dynasty. After independence, India became a democratic country. So for any dynasty, a neighborhood democratic country is a threat. Is a threat to its rule of a dynasty. So this Chogyal dynasty was anti-India, but there was a political party there which was pro-India. So what Indira Gandhi did, she developed that proximity, she found something known as, yesterday I told, fault line, very important. She found that fault line there कि यह है जो मेरे साथ हो सकता है. I need Sikkim for some particular purpose. I want Sikkim to integrate with India without the use of any force. This is happening in the period of 1974-75, just after the 1971 Bangladesh Liberation War. As I told you, the world's outlook towards India completely changed after this war. Now, the world was looking this integration of Sikkim as another effort of India to expand its influence in the neighborhood, expanding your sphere of influence in the neighborhood. This was seen by them as like this. So, but India was clear in its essence of getting Sikkim with a different purpose, right. Now, when this fault line was seen, the Sikkim National Congress was a pro-India, and by this time RAW had already taken birth, Research and Analysis Wing, which is an external intelligence agency of India. So we used the help of RAW to create a pro-India sentiment in Sikkim and forced the Sikkim National Congress to go for a referendum whether to join India or not. And in this referendum, through our so called this thing, sorry, 97.5% of the population voted in favor of India. So ultimately, on the 16th of May 1975, Sikkim became one of the states of India. Okay? The reason why Sikkim was brought into the folds of India in the same area, there is something known as, we will cover this now in the next slide. ठीक है? अरे समझ में आ रही है कहानी? सुबह सुबह स्टोरी है ना, एक तो सुबह सुबह उठा देते हो सर और ऊपर से बिठा के यहाँ स्टोरी बताते हो, हाँ, और एक्सपेक्ट करते हो कि हम जागे भी रहे और समझ में भी आए और सवाल भी पूछते हो. कितना अत्याचार करते हो, है ना भावना? नहीं, आपको इन अत्याचारों की सजा मिलेगी सर. कैसे मिलेगी? चलो छोड़ दे, कोई बात. नाउ somebody is missing today. Rajkumar is missing, right? Or somebody else is also missing. Reshma is missing, huh? Mona Lisa is missing. क्या हो गया? Why the people are not regular? चलो, now सिक्किम का इंटीग्रेशन में कोई सवाल? Anybody?
Sir, but the dynasty will have some kingdom.
Yes.
How did he accept?
He did not accept. But once the people say, because if he does not accept this guy, he will meet him in person. Indira Gandhi she had got international reputation, bhaiya. She won a country, its independence. So Indira Gandhi was not the same Indira Gandhi who went in 1969 to US begging for food for India. In 2 years, she became a world leader. 2 years. When she came, it is said, when Indira Gandhi came back to India after meeting Richard Nixon, who humiliated her, she told only one thing: next time I am not going to go anywhere with a begging bowl. You produce to eat, otherwise I will kill you all. Simple logic. So we needed Indira Gandhi at that time. So we got Indira Gandhi at that time. Okay? So try to understand the, see, your outward look, behaviorism as a country depends on the geopolitics of that time. Geopolitics of that time. And when it comes to showing courage as a country after independence, India has always performed exceptionally well. See, after the Second World War, US was one of the superpowers, Russia was one of the superpowers, but we had the courage, I will not stand with you, I will not stand with you, I will stand independent. It is a very big courage. They were nuclear powers that time and we were nowhere, anywhere to fight any battle with them. But we still had the moral courage to tell that, no, I will stand independently. Okay? So that India always displayed that courage of conviction when it comes to foreign policy. Okay? Now, the next point is related to, very important, the Doklam Plateau. See, this is probably, I am drawing a country here, God's own country, Bhutan. Okay? The Doklam Plateau comes something like this here. This is your Doklam and this is your Sikkim, and from here runs something known as your Siliguri corridor. You have Bangladesh here on the south and you have West Bengal here. Okay. Now, this is the only land connect of mainland India to the northeast. Siliguri corridor, this is the only land connect of the mainland India to the northeast. The biggest fear is if China comes closer to this and in future cut this off from the mainland India by positioning its troops or creating some infrastructure, your entire northeast is gone. Yes or no? Now the only way to go to northeast is south of Bangladesh through the Bay of Bengal and then enter. Okay? So it's a difficult way to enter the northeast. So this has always been the fear of India. This Siliguri corridor is also called as chicken's neck. It is also called as chicken's neck. Hyderabad chicken biryani's neck. Also called as chicken's neck. So India always has a fear even now that this Siliguri corridor can be attacked by the Chinese. This is one dimension. Now when this Doklam, this happened in 1516, but what happened in 2007, India signed a friendship treaty with Bhutan. That anybody comes to attack you, I will come to protect you. Now this Doklam territory, the area here, this was the area where the dispute happened. So this is the area where the dispute happened, where we tried to fight our way out with I don't know why it is not happening. With Chinese, that you are venturing into Bhutanese territory. So when we were doing that, China asked, if it is Bhutan, let Bhutan fight. Who are you to come here? Then we gave them a Xerox copy, facts. Please read this. We have signed a friendship treaty with Bhutan in the year 2007, saying that we are responsible for the security of Bhutan. This is the only country in the world where India provides security cover. It means our relationship with Bhutan is based on a security template. Generally, all other relationships are trade template or developmental template. India-Afghanistan relationship is a developmental template. As a net development provider, यहाँ पे it is net security provider. Political science का एक concept है, net security provider. So India is a net security provider to Bhutan and a net developmental provider to Afghanistan. ठीक है? Now, when this issue happened, India was worried. Because this was happening before also. Now the moment you have Sikkim with you, just see the foresightedness of Indira Gandhi. She could see what will happen after 50 years, which exactly happened after 50 years. That Doklam में China ऊपर से नीचे आएगा, definitely आएगा. So I need to have an adjoining. I cannot take this because I am having a certain relationship with that country. So now I have something which is adjoining in the west, which I can keep with me, so that there would be some territory to launch some counter attack before he tries to enter. If he tries to enter here, maybe I will go through here and cut off him from here, maybe. So there are a lot of templates of how the security will be done of this area. So that is how the importance of Sikkim comes into parlance for India. Okay? That is one dimension. So the Bhutan, India, see, a very unique relationship with Bhutan. When we come to India-Bhutan relations, I will tell you. We train their soldiers, we go there, we train their soldiers in Bhutan. That is the kind of deeper, security relationship. This country blindly believes India as its friend. And till today, Bhutan is a country in Asia that has not established diplomatic relationships with China till today. because it has some other छोटा territorial disputes with China here, and China ने एक बार attack कर दिया, and they were like, because you have attacked us, we will never talk to you ever in our life. मतलब होता है ना गर्लफ्रेंड बॉयफ्रेंड वाला हिसाब, तुमने मेरे को ये बात बोल दी, बात खत्म, तो वो वाला हिसाब है. That day till date Bhutan has not spoken. See, if you do not have a diplomatic relationship, it means there is no envoy of China sitting in Bhutan, or is no envoy of Bhutan sitting in China. There is no diplomatic relationship till today. Even today they don't talk to each other, because they say you are too aggressive in your exposure. That is the reason why India provides the entire security cover. This is the Doklam issue, DOKLAM, Doklam issue which happened. Now come to the eastern sector. I told you eastern sector क्या है, पूरा अरुणाचल प्रदेश, the entire Arunachal Pradesh or Northeast Frontier Agency, which was called earlier Arunachal See, the stand of China as regards Arunachal Pradesh is that it is part of southern Tibet. China claims Arunachal Pradesh, as part of southern Tibet, Then we say, sir, you are geographically right but historically wrong. Yes, Arunachal Pradesh is south of Tibet, but it is not part of southern Tibet. As I told you, all the Manchus of Asia revered Tibetan Lamas, all the Buddhists of that area revered the Tibetan Lamas. So also the Arunachal Pradesh Manchus were the Buddhist monks, Manchus. They also revered Tibetan Lama as their spiritual guru, but maintained political and administrative independence. With this what happened? When Tibet got annexed, because they felt this Arunachal Pradesh as part of southern Tibet, China claimed entire Arunachal Pradesh as part of southern Tibet, and we continue to maintain they are an independent political and administrative entity. It is not part of this thing, and we have inherited this land as part of British Indian Empire. Because this was under the control of Britishers when India became independent. So as per the Indian Independence Act that was signed between British and India, this territory was also handed over to India as part of integral territory of India. Entire Arunachal and Assam also. In the 1962 conflict, I am not using the word war, I am using the word conflict. Anybody, what is the difference between war and conflict? That is skirmish, or it could be you can say standoff, it could be a skirmish. What is the difference between a conflict and a war? See, there is a possibility of violence along the border, we spoke about it. If it does not get controlled, it might end up into a standoff for long period of time. If it does not it is not taken care of for a long period of time, it may end up to become a conflict. That area will become a conflict. Today Galwan Valley has become a conflict. ठीक है. Today Pangangso Lake has become a conflict. Today the Demchok area and all has become a conflict because it has now been prolonged for so much period of time. Maybe tomorrow a war will happen. Now the difference between a conflict and a war is, always remember, at the end of the war a treaty is signed. Which was the Treaty of Yandabu signed after the Anglo-Burmese War, 1824 I spoke, no? Treaty of Yandabu. When Britishers annexed Assam and the Burmese area, they signed a treaty called Treaty of Yandabu at the end of war, first Anglo-Burmese war. India fought a war with Pakistan in 47-48, we signed the Karachi Agreement. We fought a war with Pakistan in 1971, we signed Shimla Agreement. We fought a war in 1965, we signed the Tashkent Agreement. Yes or no? We fought a war in 1999 Kargil? No. Kargil is also a conflict because there is no treaty being signed after the conflict. So technically speaking, India and China did not go on war with each other. See, war is one very important element of war is the declaration of war. Very important. China never declared war on India, India never declared war on India. It got prolonged so badly that for a month the conflict continued. And when this conflict was in continuation, China had occupied entire Arunachal Pradesh and also some parts of Assam also. But it unilaterally withdrew. This was when India knocked the doors of USA. Tuck, 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 humko bachao. When India knocked the doors of USA, that is when USA told, तुमने तो बोला था तुम non-aligned हो. We joined non-aligned movement, right? We did not join the Western Bloc or the Eastern Bloc. Then he said, you said you are non-aligned. Then Nehru said, yes sir, I said I am not aligned. And I have brought one paper Xerox copy of non-aligned also, in which I have very clearly written, if required, I will engage with the West, I will also engage with the East. I have been engaging with the East, now I want to engage with the West, please come to my rescue. US never came to our rescue, but it only declared that I am coming to the rescue of India. The time period is 1962, US has very recently emerged as war victorious of the Second World War, having more than 5,000 nuclear weapons. When this notification came open air that US is coming to Pacific to fight a battle with China, China had to retreat, because this is not the same China what you see today. A very weak China then, not very strong either economically, politically or militarily then. Okay. So it had to withdraw only by a statement that yes, US said that it is coming to rescue of India. So that unilateral withdrawal happened on the east, but this unilateral withdrawal did not happen in Aksai Chin. They continued to retain Aksai Chin. So after the 1962 conflict, the same contention that we do not accept the McMahon line as the boundary between India and China continues. China's occupation of Aksai Chin and retention of Aksai Chin under its physical authority continues. Its occupation of the entire northeast and unilateral withdrawal from the northeast also happened. For the northeast to understand, there is one battle, Battle of Walong, WALONG, not more than 15 minutes. बस 15 मिनट के लिए पढ़ो to understand what would have happened. ठीक है? If time permits, once you become bureaucrats, there is a book called Himalayan Blunder. If time permits, if you have interest, you can read that book, Himalayan Blunder. Indian troops were literally butchered there by the Chinese. I have been there. there is some negativity in the air even today because of probably the amount of deaths that would have happened in that small piece of land. In the northeast, in the Anjar district of Arunachal Pradesh, near Lohit Valley, where Brahmaputra takes U-turn and enters India. I was a post commander there. Even today, it feels that place is haunted even today because of the casualties that have happened in that particular small piece of land, Battle of Velong. If life gives you a chance, do visit that place. Okay? Now, so we have covered the western, we have covered the central, we have covered the eastern. These are related to boundary disputes. Western का 2-3 है, कल मैं मैप की मदद से आपको अच्छे से और समझा दूँ. There are other disputes also with China, which are technically not boundary disputes only. So tomorrow when we come back, the western disputes, that part I will tell, and the various agreements that India has signed with China for settling the boundary disputes, I will dictate 7-8 points that we will cover tomorrow. Okay? So anything you would like to know more, you please ask me, I will tell you. China, no, we cannot do. Modi ko maar denge log. They will, see, China is one country which will bring 11th century map, 12th century map, 13th century map. Nobody understands साला लिखा क्या उसमें, ठीक है? Because archaic, these archaic historical maps have relevance even today, because that is one of the way you can stake claims on that particular piece of land. That is the way you will tell the world that this belongs to me. So at any given point of time, we will not, the change of map happened, tried to happen in the past. You are talking about the Henry MacDonald line, right? We proposed, he did not accept, we did not change the map. पहले propose, see, there is a word called, this is the final stage of agreement of a boundary dispute settlement. Delineation, we say no, the boundary between India and Pakistan is delineated, means the identification of boundary on map, the identification of the boundary on ground, claims, counter claims settled, claims settled, then survey on ground will happen, then picketing will happen, then demarcation will happen, and then finally delineation will happen. ऐसा नहीं है कि तुमने मैसेज दे दिया व्हाट्सएप, your and my boundary dispute is settled, ऐसा नहीं होगा. It has to follow a particular sequence of events that have to happen without any corrections required in future anywhere. Because tomorrow you cannot say that whatever I signed was okay, waste. Modi ने जो sign किया I do not agree, ऐसा नहीं चले. So that is why it goes through a particular process. At every stage it has a meaning. Okay? So because it was initially only, that's what I told, they proposed, to that proposal there was no, so that shifting did not even come to this stage also. Got it? Got the answer? Yeah. The entire boundary between India and China is called the line of actual control. This line of actual control is not the word given by us. This is the word given by the Chinese, and India had a strong objection to this word also. Why? Because the moment you use the word actual control, the moment you use the word actual control, it means that it is not the real control. In this sense, physically you are holding it, but that is not the real demarcation line. It signifies that. So that is the reason why this LAC is not the term which was given by India but by China to tell that okay, you are holding it for 70 years, but that does not give you the right of occupation. It is not your real right. That is why it is line of actual control, right? That is why they never agreed to this as a international boundary. They do not use the word. When we see the India-Pakistan border from Gujarat till Jammu, it is called IB, international boundary. From Jammu to point NJ9842, it is called line of control. And from point NJ9842 to Indira Kohl, it is called advanced ground position line. So every word has got different meaning. Every word, the classification of that boundary line has got a meaning. So here the LSA, which is unsettled even today, has got a meaning that it is not the real authority that you have, but only on physically on ground you are holding this. Getting my point? Okay? Yeah. There is one term in here which is called adverse possession. Adverse possession. See, this is a piece of land. This concept generally applies to land primarily. This is a piece of land. You hold this land for 50 years, but technically this land belonged to the government. Now because you are holding this land for the 50 years, past 50 years under your physical occupation, you can go to the court and say, sir, I have been in physical occupation, ये मेरा पानी का बिल है, मेरा लाइट का बिल है, ये मेरा property tax का बिल है, आप देखिए. So the law presumes that because you are in the real authority, you are in the control of that land without having the title to goods. Title to goods or land. Title means papers. There is no paper that this land belongs to you. So you are staking claims only on the grounds of physical possession for a continuous period of time without any breaks in between. So China is afraid that applying the theory of adverse possession, you may claim this entire Arunachal Pradesh, I am holding this line for the last 70 years. So to clear that thought in your mind, they will use the word line of actual control. The moment our diplomat uses the term the boundary dispute, line of actual control. Okay, that's the point. War with China for Arunachal Pradesh is inevitable. It will happen sooner or later. Only along China it is only one. When we come to Pakistan, we will discuss. Bolo. Anything else? Manikandan, are you understanding after a nap of 10 minutes? Tomorrow I will tell. Yeah. What else? कुछ और? नहीं? Once we cover this, एक क्वेश्चन लिखो मेंस के लिए, what all we have covered in the border management, उसके ऊपर try to write this answer. Describe the nature of India's borders with its neighborhood. Describe the nature of India's borders with its neighborhood and also throw light on the challenges in effective border management. Okay. Then critically evaluate, या examine लिखो, evaluate मत करो, critically examine the overemphasis on the border guarding force overemphasis on border guarding force in the approach to border management over other approaches. In the approach to border management over other approaches. Question समझ में आया कि नहीं? Over other approaches. Critically examine the, क्या बोला मैंने? Critically examine the, okay, overemphasis. See, approaches to border management चार है: border guarding force, regulation, border area development, and constituting bilateral institutional mechanisms. The question is saying, if you concentrate only on the border guarding force, if you leave the dimension of regulation, border area development and these institutional mechanisms, the objective of ensuring peace cannot be achieved. So, you need to give equal importance to all the four dimensions. That is the demand of the question. Okay? Try to write at least one answer to these questions. I have given you two questions, right? Yeah. Ten 10:30 you have the history class, ancient history. How is the class going? Enjoying history? History ko, do not look at history, do not approach history as punishment. If you approach history as punishment, you will never able to get command on that particular subject, and history is very, very important for UPSC to, so it helps you to open your perspective about society. So, try to look at history कि मुझे इसको पढ़ना ही पढ़ना है. So, do not approach history with a broken heart. You will never be able to understand certain dimensions. ठीक है, अच्छे से पढ़ो. Sir is teaching you at depth. I have asked him to cover ancient and modern in considerable depth, because that is where the majority of questions come from, ancient and modern. ठीक है, चलो, take care. We will meet tomorrow.